Here's one of the things that I have discovered over the years in this last weekend before the exam. Bar takers historically start to ask themselves some very dangerous, disempowering questions. These are what we would think of as low value questions, the questions that make us feel bad about ourselves. We're most vulnerable to some of this at the end. It's when the doubt and the discouragement start to creep up. I've been really impressed with the comments in our private Facebook group. So many of you have been incredibly supportive, as well as very funny, but also very encouraging of one another. And I'm so grateful for that community. I think that's a real asset to our students. But I know that a lot of people feel isolated at this stage. And in that isolation, very often we start asking ourselves these questions that really cut away at our self-confidence. They erode our sense of worth and value, and they can be absolutely devastating at the end. So I want to identify 5 questions very quickly that I hear bar students ask themselves at the end. And I want to quickly give you a replacement question for each one. Something that if you find yourself thinking this or asking yourself this question, you can replace it. Okay, so here we go. First low value question that comes is a comparison question. Why am I not doing as well as everyone else or someone else or a particular individual or people that I know? This comparison, what we call a shot of Compeerschlager, okay? Take another shot of that Compeerschlager. It's really a deadly thing to do. When you start comparing yourself to other people, you're going to get yourself in trouble. So what you want to do to replace that is, I think you want to say, what are the wins or the victories I've had to get to where I am today? And what I mean is this: most of you had to have a lot of wins in your life to be in a position to sit for the bar exam. I mean, think about it. You had to win in high school to get into a good college. You had to win at college to be considered for law school. You had to win on the LSAT to be able to get into law school. You had to win in law school to be able to graduate. You had to win to be able to be in practice if you've taken and passed another bar somewhere else. You had to win so many places in so many ways in your life that the reality is that it's easy to forget that and say, well, everybody else is doing great. And yet you were one of the winners. There are a lot of people that would compare themselves to you and find themselves falling short of the things you've already done. So before you take a shot of Compeerschlager, the question that you want to ask yourself is, in reality, what are the wins that I've already had? And when you start focusing on your own wins, I think you're going to get a much better result than when you focus on what other people are doing. It's also worthwhile to remember that everybody's got their own story, their own drama, their own tale of things that they had to do to get to a certain point. So while it might look like somebody's had a really easy time and they're just, really cruising through all of this, I can assure you that from where I sit, I see a lot more of those challenges and suffering and struggles. And I rarely meet somebody who sails through the entire process without some moments of challenge and pain and struggle. And so when you're comparing yourself to other people and you're thinking, well, nobody else is feeling this, the odds are pretty much that that isn't true. Okay, so that's question number 1. If you start trying to compare yourself, start asking, what have I done to win and what are my wins to get here already? Question number 2 that comes up this weekend. I don't know why, but it does. People start saying, oh man, I wish I'd started sooner. Why didn't I start sooner? Now, for those of you that are July bar takers, you should feel pretty good about this one right now. You should be thinking to yourself, oh man, I am starting early. Good for you. But for those of you that may feel like you should have started sooner, here's the question I want you to ask that's empowering. Very simply, what do I need to know and to learn today? That's all. Forget about what happened in the past. Forget about when you started or didn't start. Forget about how productive or non-productive you were. What you want to focus on this weekend is, what do I need to learn in this study session today? What can I improve on? What 1 or 2 things can I learn or get to know today? What can I get better at today? And if you've got that approach, I think that this second question of when did you start or why didn't you start sooner becomes much less powerful, because now you're focused on the reality of what you need to work on. And that's where I want your focus to be. The third disempowering question that many of you will ask, because you failed the bar before, is, why do I keep failing? And it's really funny how this question, and I don't mean funny in a ha-ha way, it's really funny, weird, how right before the exam, when you should be feeling the most confident, is when a lot of people start feeling the least confident, and they start thinking about all the times they failed, all the things that went wrong in their studies, maybe all the things that went wrong in their life. It's sort of that sense of maybe I'm really just a charlatan. You know, I'm a fake. Nobody, you know, I don't belong here. I don't belong in law school. I didn't belong as a lawyer. I'm really meant to be a failure. You can imagine that scenario. Well, here's the question I would ask. What are your resources? What is it that you've done that you're doing well right now? Instead of asking, why do you keep failing? Ask yourself, what have I done well in my studies this time? The odds are really good for most of you that your multi-state score is much higher than it's ever been. For many of you, I think it'll also be true that your essays are written in a more organized, disciplined fashion than they've ever been before. You're probably using the law more effectively than you've ever used it before. You're coming to the point where you can say, you know what, I'm really confident. I was frantic the last time, or I was behind the last time. I'm not feeling that way today. I don't have to be in that situation. In other words, catalog the resources that you're bringing to the test right now. There is no benefit in looking backwards into what your results were. And for those of you that are first-time takers and you're saying, well, this doesn't apply to me, I can assure you that there will be moments over the next 5 days when you are reminded of some failure in your life. Oh, you know, the time you struck out in Little League baseball, or you didn't get picked for the cheerleader team, or whatever it might be. And it's at that moment when failure seems like it's really crashing in around you that you want to go back and say, whoa, wait a minute. Let me just catalog all the things, or some of the things that I'm grateful for, that I'm good at, that are happening, that are really good for me, the skills and abilities and resources that I've got. We call that the success-based approach to learning. We've used it all the way through this course. We've asked you why so high instead of why so low when it came to your results. And so I think when you catalog those results, you get a very different approach. The fourth question that can disempower you is, should I be cramming this weekend? Isn't there more that I need to learn right now? Don't I need to cram a little bit more information? That is obviously a very, very destructive question to ask. In fact, I've had students today say to me, I talk to my friends who are studying with somebody else, and they're putting in 18 hours a day, and they're reviewing essays and reading this and doing this and studying this and doing, shouldn't I be doing all of that? That's a disempowering question. Here's the empowering question. What do I already know, and how do I need to express that on the exam? Different question. What do I already know, and how do I express that most effectively on the exam? That's really the test, isn't it? On an essay or a performance test, is expressing the skills and abilities that you have. When it comes to the multi-state, expressing what you know comes by acting intuitively, using your instinct to answer the questions instead of trying to cram more elements or rules together on a flashcard or an outline, or sitting outside the test exam room frantically, highlighting before you go in for the test. That is a disempowered individual, the one that you see there sitting at the exam room, still with their highlighter out in their books. You don't need to be that person. What you want to do is to say, you know, what is it I already know, and how do I express that on the exam? If you're asking that question for the next few days, that's going to be a much more productive result for you and a much better answer. And then the final question that I think can disempower you, and it really can happen anytime, but this last weekend is certainly a great opportunity for it, is why is everything going wrong? Why is my plane flight canceled or delayed? Why is my car breaking down? Why are the kids suddenly getting sick? Why is my spouse mad at me? Why is? We got lots of why is's, okay? Why is everything going wrong? Well, the question that I think you know that I want you to ask is very different. And the question is, how can I take full responsibility for my own outcomes? Really simple. How do I take full responsibility for my outcomes? In other words, instead of focusing on why everything is wrong or some things are wrong, focus on what's your responsibility. Here's a news flash. You don't fly airplanes, most of you. Therefore, it's not in your control. It's not in your control when they put you in the wrong room at the hotel, or a room that you don't like. It's not really in your control. The things that aren't in your control, let go of them. Just let them go. Take responsibility for your own outcomes. Now, To be clear, what that means is not taking responsibility for passing the bar. That is actually not your responsibility. That's the bar examiner's responsibility to grade you. Your responsibility is to go to the test next week and to deliver the best quality information that you can over the days of the exam. That is your only responsibility. That's it. If you take full responsibility for that outcome, for doing the best work you can for 2 or 3 days, then you've done your job. And let the rest fall to the wayside. It is not your responsibility. It's not your responsibility to make sure that everybody's happy around you. It's not your responsibility to make sure the car is running properly. If you've got to deal with those things, you got to deal with them. But it's not that the world or the universe is conspiring against you. It's that you simply refuse to be a victim. You're going to take responsibility for the things that matter to you. And for the next few days, the thing that probably matters about the most is just doing your best work on the exam. So my hope is that if you'll take these high value questions and you'll use those instead of the low value questions that people start to ask, you'll have a much more productive weekend of study and lead up to the exam. And during the exam itself, look, things will go wrong at the test sites. Proctors will screw up the clocks and the timing. There will be earthquakes. There will be fire alarms. There will be construction going. There will be protests outside your hallway. There just will be things happening. The software won't work properly on the computers. I mean, every exam we get these stories, and frankly, they keep above the law and some of the other snarky blogs in business because there's so many weird, crazy things that happen. But you don't have to give in to any of that. Your job is to go in, take responsibility for your own outcome, do your own work, be focused on what it takes for you to succeed. And if you do that, then you're going to be successful because you've prepared properly. You know the law, you know what to do, you understand how to do this work, and you've got to trust that. And if you do that, then I think it's a good result for you.